Geoff Lewis here from Seriously Series, and welcome to another Golden Quest episode. Once more we're venturing out into the great western woodlands, and here today we're going to be retracing the steps of an explorer that had a profound impact on this part of the world but has been lost to the passages of time. The track that he and his party forged through to get out into this part of the world has also elapsed back into the bushland that it was forged out of. But until recently, it has been resurrected. And so you yourself, like me, and the Series 2 here, can go out and enjoy it. So if you want to find out this and more, as always, you know exactly what to do. Sit back, relax, grab yourself a brew of something slightly stronger, but most importantly, stay tuned. Right, so we've got a few things to look at around here. There's a few wells and there's a few, obviously, geological features too, but I won't talk about that too much, don't worry about that. Behind us here though, we've got a large granite dome and we've had some recent rain, so a lot of the rock pools are actually filled up. And I've talked about the importance of these in previous episodes, but just to recap, when it rains, obviously the water runs off the granite and the surrounding clays and sands obviously soak up this water. And this played such an important part not only for the traditional owners or the Aboriginal tribes in the area, but also for the early explorers and the early prospectors coming out here into the goldfields of Western Australia. Now, over here we've got a fantastic example of stone masonry. So let's go over there and have a bit of a look. You don't have to be a brickie or in the building industry not to be able to admire this. The fact that there's no mortar used or anything, someone's actually nutted it out like a jigsaw puzzle. They haven't used any fancy lasers or anything like that, but it's perfectly symmetrical all the way around. Incredible. This is one of a few wells that have been sunk here over the years, and the first of which I believe was sunk by Christopher Hunt, who will be the star of the show, you could say, moving forward. The interesting thing about this individual, and why I think it's important to sort of talk about him, is that he came out to this part of the world in very, very early in the piece, in the 1860s in fact, and the first well was sunk here in 1864. No one else had really pushed out this far before. There'd been a couple of people that had tried, but not to the extent that he had. The reason why he was coming out here was really for this, to see if there was water, to see if there was land that could actually be used to run cattle, crops and pasture. That's sort of the real push for exploration in this part of the world, and we'll talk more about that later on down the track. But stuff like this is incredible, and the funny thing is that I've travelled up and down this road at least a dozen times or more, and I've never ever stopped here, and I didn't know that any of this existed until recently, and I'll talk about that too. So anyway, we've got lots to talk about, but we've got a track to travel down too, so I better hop in the Land Rover, fire it up and make some miles. Morning. Well, it was a bit of a bumpy start for this trip. The Series 2's heater finally gave way. The heater core cracked just before leaving to film this, so I left Kalgoorlie a little bit later than I intended, and I haven't got a heater now. Not that you need one out here, it's hot enough as it is. I think it's going to be 32 degrees today. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about this track that we're travelling on. It's a great track. The conditions are fantastic. You can sit on 20 miles an hour or 40 kilometers an hour in the more, modern measurement terms, and you can just enjoy the drive and nature. If you want a track that's going to sort of crack your four-wheel drive in half and all the rest, then you probably need to head to the Holland track a little bit further south. But coming across this track and finding out about it, it really pays to sort of do a little bit of research. And I just wanted to talk about that too. There's a great magazine out there called Western Four-Wheel Driver magazine, and a friend of mine, Phil Bianchi, he actually writes for it, and he's written some really good articles. And he actually wrote an article on this very track, Hunt's Track, and he's put a huge amount of effort into it. There's distances, waypoints, points of interest, and it really ties in quite nicely with the rest of the magazine. It's not the kind of magazine that's going to tell you how to fit a 15-inch lift kit in your car and quadruple lockers and all the rest. It's more of a practical touring magazine. And we actually write a bush mechanics column in it. So there's lots and lots of useful facts. But there's other useful books out there too. There's actually some really good four-wheel drive guidebooks. This is one on the Goldfields here. And this has got tons and tons and tons of trips. Day trips, overnight trips. You're spoilt for choice. And they do this for all of Western Australia. And you can purchase them online. But Phil not only writes really good articles in Western Four-Wheel Driver magazine, he's actually written quite a few good books. Or well, they're all good books actually. And he's very passionate about the woodlines of Western Australia. And this is his book here. And it's a pretty hefty read. It's a bit of an encyclopedia, you could say, but it's amazing. Even where we're driving today, we're going where others have been before, obviously. But this whole area here was littered with narrow gauge railway lines. And I know I've probably talked about this before, but these were so important, these railway lines. They'd go out to little villages, settlements along those lines, and basically the trees would be cut down. That wood would then be put onto these trains, and that would actually go to mine sites or areas of, I guess, significance, you could say, because they weren't just used for mine sites. The wood was also used to obviously fuel the boilers and the pumps for the water pipeline that actually comes from Perth up to Kalgoorlie. And it's amazing. You walk out in the bush here today and you'll think no one's ever been there before. But you'll find things like, there's a picture in here that hopefully we'll see today, and it's a tree that's literally got files in it. Half a dozen files. And those files are there probably from people, I don't know, sharpening their axes or whatever they needed those files for. So it's incredible. And just like the track itself and the gentleman, Christopher Hunt, like, what an amazing bloke. I think he was born in 1833, and he came out to Australia, I think in the 1850s or 1860s, and he came out to this part of the world right here, and to be here and to explore this part of the world, it must have been like being on the moon. And the funny thing is, very few people have heard of him, but it was his tracks and his trails and the wells that he actually put in that 30 years later, in the 1890s, proved so important for the would-be prospectors coming out from Perth, coming out from Southern Cross and heading to Coolgardie, heading to Kalgoorlie and what is now the Goldfields. So without those tracks, who knows what would have happened. So I think doing a little bit of research, reading up a little bit more so before you come out on a trip can just help you to appreciate it a lot more and enrich your overall experience. But anyway, that's enough from me. We better do some checks on the Series 2, head out on the track, leave a nice fine oil trail to keep the dust down for others to follow. Anyway, let's make it happen. here we are at our final destination, and I'm going to call it Yeldine Rock, and I've probably got it wrong, but don't worry, we're here. And this is an impressive granite dome that is so indicative of this area here in the Great Western Woodlands. You can see along the perimeter of the actual granite dome itself that people over the years have had a go at digging their own well. And Christopher Hunt actually dug a pretty impressive well here back in the day, so I'm told. But I haven't had the joy of finding it this time. But that's not a big problem. It's nice to leave something for next time, isn't it? So this marks the end of the trip, but not the end of the adventure here at Seriously Series. And I want to take the time to say a big thank you to all our supporters via Patreon. Your proceeds, your pledges are what make this possible. And anyway, if you are enjoying the content here at Seriously Series, then please do click on that subscribe button down below. Click on that notification button too. And I'll catch you on the next one. See you then.